Rough day yesterday for a lot of people inside the franchise's football family with the loss of my friend and longtime colleague, Dale Lolley. We lost him to a lengthy bout with cancer yesterday at the ridiculously young age of 56. And my heart, first and foremost by a mile, goes out to his wife, Amy, the whole family, 3 kids, and those closest to him. As for those of us who do for a living what he did for a living, I can also tell you this. He'd hate anybody wasting as much as an extra second talking about anything other than football, because that's the job. And Dale was all about the job. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers presented by FanDuel. It comes your way every weekday, bright and early. And if you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates. Any of you who've been through a loss, and I consider Dale to be one of the best friends, one of the most committed friends I had in my life. And I was blessed to have him in my life. But that also applied on a professional level, what he meant to DK Pittsburgh Sports by coming into our world and being the adult in the room back when we needed it. And we were the startup that thought we were going to make $1 zillion every year. And it was all awesome. And we carried ourselves. This was back in 2014, 2015, even into 16 and 17 when the Penguins were winning cups and all this money came in and we thought everything was just going to be fun and games forever. Had no idea how to run a business, human resources, this and that. That's not who we were. My wife wasn't someone who'd run a business. I was just a reporter, and we needed somebody to really kind of calibrate our little world. Dale did that for us. Dale did that with a dogged determination to get the story, to win the day as a reporter, to get more out of every media setting into which he stepped than anybody else in our line of work on any given day. And the key word in there is work. He worked hard, relentlessly, watched every practice, never took a day off. I was the one making out the work schedule in the years that Dale was with us. I might as well have been scripting it for myself when it came to him. Dale, aren't you off today? I don't take days off in football season. That's a commitment that he had toward people who follow the franchise as much as he had for us as a company or even himself. He strived to be your eyes and your ears and your consciousness in that environment. And I'm here to tell you, as someone who communicated with him pretty much through the end, we actually texted over this past weekend, it hurt him so much more to not be able to be in Latrobe, to not be at the preseason games, to not be at either of these first 2 games than you could conceivably imagine. And this right here is where I'm going to attempt a transition, because this man from his bed was writing analytical pieces about what little he could see, what little he did have access to about the 2025 Steelers. And out of respect to him, I'm going to go back to the last piece that he filed with Steelers.com. Those who were employing him the past couple of years in his dream job, and knowing how prescient he'd be about things, and using this word again, how hard he worked to form his thoughts. They weren't hot takes. They weren't things that he was just throwing against the wall to see what sticks. He was economical with his words, but absolutely the opposite when it came to what went into those words. On August 29th, for Steelers.com, he wrote what he would call his 5 for Friday. They were just 5 observations that he make. It was indispensable reading. He hadn't been with us at DK Pittsburgh Sports for a couple of years, and I found it to be indispensable reading just for myself as somebody who's covering the team. And what I'm going to do out of respect to this being copyrighted material that belongs to the Steelers is respectfully synopsize what's here, but I can't strongly enough encourage you to go find this for yourself. He led with his observations on what the Steelers had been anticipating to do with the 3 coverage people, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter. And he shared his view that all 3 of them could match up man-to-man against any opponent in the league, while also still having the capability of playing in other coverage schemes. His view was that it would lead to one of the NFL's better secondaries, that it would lead to more turnovers, that it would lead to more sacks, and to just general chaos. Now, before you hear that and say, well, that's not exactly the way this has turned out, understand a couple of things. One, he cautions that Porter's not all the way there. He cautions that health could be a factor. It, of course, has become a significant factor. And he did mention schemes. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but if you've paid any attention to the various film analyses that have come out since the Steelers' most recent game, you'll know that the schemes are really hurting both Slay and Ramsey right now. Really hurting them. They're static, they're predictable. I digress. Dale really liked what he had seen of Y.A. Black, and not just in terms of physical performance, because Black is an imposing figure and a half. His point was that when he saw Black making plays, including in the preseason, he saw someone who, and I'm going to quote this one directly, showed that the game is not too big for him. It's showing that the game just comes to him. Mark that one down. That was on August 29th. That's everything that I'm sharing with you here. His third point was to issue yet another warning about health and how dramatically these Steelers could be affected by that. His fourth point was about Calvin Austin, who I know from our own conversations between him and me, he really believed in. He wrote in this piece that some look at Austin and see him simply as a slot receiver. That is very far from the truth. In fact, pound for pound, he writes, Austin might be the toughest player on the team, if not the league. He's shown time and again that he can take a hit and bounce right back up. We would see that play out in that opening victory in East Rutherford. That, by the way, was a big recurring point for Dale. He really, I don't know if he would outright dismiss, but he would certainly downplay any concerns that anyone would have about the whole WR2 thing. He always felt that could be Cal. And finally, he reminds Steelers fans in his final bullet to count their blessings regarding Derek Harmon and the knee injury that he had. It could have been way worse than it was. And Harmon returning to practice the way he did yesterday and putting himself at least into a position where he might make his NFL debut in week 3 does in fact look like it'll be not only uplifting but also necessary. And he ended his final piece with one sentence. Let's kick this season off. Always, always, always leaning toward the brighter side, which is part of what made conversing with him and reading him, hearing him on Steelers Nation radio and everything else just a joy. And he's going to be missed on every conceivable level. When we come back, J1Q. You're going to have to grant me one more segment, everybody, on this subject. It's too fresh, too raw. I do promise you that all eyes will turn toward Foxborough on this end, beginning this afternoon with the Double Shot Show. But I'm not there yet. I'm going to read some of the stuff that was sent to me over the past 24 hours. And I apologize. I've been like super slow through this show and everything else here. It just, give me a day and change here. Kevin wrote, Dale brought so much to DK Pittsburgh Sports in whatever endeavor he happened to be doing. We will miss his written words and his sharp wit on his audio and video products. His podcasts with Matt Williamson, those were on Steelers Nation Radio, were among the best that there are. Condolences to his family and friends everywhere. Dave wrote, I've always felt that the best writers were the ones that made you feel as if you actually knew them just from reading their writing. Dale's writing was very much that. You could see how much of himself he really put into it. Dave adds, I've also been moved here by the sheer volume of genuine grief expressed by his fellow Pittsburgh journalists on social media and radio and everywhere. It's clear that not all sports writers like each other. No, they don't, Dave. But it's obvious that they all truly liked and respected Dale. That is accurate, my friend. Sean writes that this was heartbreaking. I hope he knew how positive an impact he had on his countless readers with his dogged coverage of the Steelers as an institution that we all care for so deeply. The post-game shows with him, whether they were after a win or a loss, he was just so good and had such a gift in this medium. Sean, I love that point because you'll recall he and I used to do all the post-game shows together, like standing on the rotunda or whatever city that we were in after every game, home and road. And I'd be the one, flailing about and fire this guy and get rid of this guy and whatever. And he's just the professional, I'm going to use this term again. He was the adult in the room and I'm the infant. And he didn't mind that. He would just let me be me. And then he would say, all right, listen, let's be real here. And that's what I think you're talking about here, Sean, because that's what a lot of people need after a win or a loss, because you're going to get too high, you're going to get too low. That's just the nature of being a literal fanatic following a franchise. I love this one. It comes from Eric. Says, Dale was such a professional. It was fun to have a high-level football debate with him. Here's what you don't know. Here's what you didn't see. We'd be leaving a stadium, and we get in the car, and I would usually do most of the initial driving. He couldn't wait to open up our commenting forum and get in there. And sometimes not necessarily in a healthy way, because there were certain people that really got on his nerves or whatever, but they never had to wonder if he cared. And as such, the respect was always there. Because if you're doing that, by definition, you care what those people are actually saying. Here's the perfect way to end this show. Mark Oliver writes, prayers, thoughts, and deepest sympathies to all the friends and family who knew and loved Dale. I worked with him way back when he started his career at The Derrick in Oil City. Great guy who was already a hard and diligent worker at the time. He will surely be very much missed. Rest in peace.